Back to the outcome-based agreement. So let's say outcome-based agreements. Let's say this is a precursor, and that we are moving towards that type of trend. And I think some groups would call outcome-based agreements value-based care. Right? I think that's a very, very hot topic. That could be considered. They're not exactly the same, but they sort of fall. Outcome-based agreements probably falls into the bucket of value-based care. I know you've worked in large pharmaceutical company in the past for many, many years. Can you give some examples of ones maybe you've undertaken, or ones that you know of that were successful or actually not successful? That would actually be kind of interesting. What are some of the learnings from those?
Yeah, so I think maybe one of the earliest examples is one that was something that was agreed upon between my former company, Janssen, and this was Janssen in the UK at the time. So I'm not speaking out of turn here. A lot of this is public information. They essentially created one of the first outcomes-based agreements, and it was for a product called Velcade for multiple myeloma. Not a lot of really new products at that point in time. It was considered to be a really expensive product because of the duration of use, for these patients. But I think we were quite confident that what we had seen in the clinical trials meant that the value was there for the patient. The efficacy was certainly well beyond anything that was available at that point in time. And an agreement was struck essentially with the NHS to reimburse based on what we thought was the outcomes that we would see versus what would happen if we weren't able to deliver that. I think it was successful in a couple of ways. It was certainly successful for Janssen in trying to get access at that point in time for something that it was the sort of the beginning of the era of really expensive new chemotherapy agents. So there was a lot of pushback, but it was certainly important for patients, certainly a success for patients, because they actually had a product in their arsenal that was incredibly effective. And it actually exceeded, I think, at that time, if I remember correctly, the outcomes that anyone had anticipated based on the phase 3 clinical trials. So I think it's a great early example, one of the earliest examples that I can think of, and certainly one that I'm happy to have been, a part of in terms of being part of Janssen at that point in time. But it's certainly an early example where, you got early access for patients. It delivered from a clinical perspective, at least as good as it had, as people had expected. So I think that's a win-win, and one of the best examples that I can sort of look at.